Hi Virgo, it's Jenny here with your April Tarot Horoscope. So we're just going to pull a single card for the month of April, see what's coming up for you. So the first 2/3 of April is Aries season. We just rolled over to an energetic new year with the March equinox. So starting with Aries season, we're in a full new cycle. And then towards the end of the month, we're going to be in Taurus season. So we're starting with fire sign Aries and then rolling into an earth sign. Hold on. Let's do that one. Okay, here's your card, Virgo. We have the Six of Wands. So this is the way it looks the right way up. So we have this man in white armor, and he's on this black horse that's just kind of walking along. He's got this one wand as the sort of staff pillar, and it's got this little circle at the end of it with a little white sash. And then he's got behind the rest of his wands. And down below we have this figure. It's not super distinct, small little like child either reaching up, like reaching towards him or telling him to stop. Not quite sure what's going on there. But that's Six of Wands. And so we're going to see what has to say for you this month. So, Six of Wands, gaining strength. At first glance, the picture seems to show a proud and strong horseman. At second glance, however, we discover that he is holding only one of the 6 wands in his hand. 5 wands remain in the background. On the left, we see a small, faceless figure. It represents man's proverbial inner child. We may rightfully assume that this aspect of the rider is underdeveloped, as the figure is drawn so sketchily and with no face. As long as the rider fails to accept his inner child, and as long as he exploits only a fraction of the powers at his disposal, only one of 6 wands, he will be driven by childish motives and fears without even being aware of it. We often assume that we have to suppress our weaknesses in order to become proud and strong. The picture shows us that in reality, the opposite is true. If you acknowledge strengths as well as weaknesses, you will become much stronger. See the horse and the energy of the 5 additional wands. The 5 wands represent influences and events that are beyond your control. If you know your strengths and your weaknesses, you will become much more flexible. Thus, you enhance your ability to cooperate with your destiny. You need to reconcile yourself with your inner child and with your own animalistic aspects. You must make peace with your own imperfections and say goodbye to many immature habits. This process of growing up is represented by the ring and the single wand, which symbolize the differences between, as well as the unification of, the feminine and the masculine. A mature sexuality makes demands on your personal power and enhances it, vitalizing your self-confidence. It is important to recognize the feminine and the masculine as 2 aspects of your own personality. Practical advice: do not be intimidated and don't intimidate others. Stand up for what moves you and go for it wholeheartedly. Okay, so this is a great card. They're all great, but this one in particular with this season, because we're starting with Aries season, it is great that this inner child is showing up. So Aries as a sign is this like spark of new life. It's the new year, and it's this sense of like very pure and not differentiated sense of self. So it's this pure I am. It's just I exist, and it's very symbolic or parallel to like a newborn infant. Newborn infant comes out of the womb, doesn't know that I'm a great sculptor. I have really big feelings. I'm really smart. They don't know that. They just are. They just exist. They know that they're there, but there's nothing really yet defined about them. It's just raw ego and just this rich just beingness. So that's where we all start out, and then we add on identity and we discover identity. We sort of find what is innate within us and hopefully allow it to flourish, or some of that we get repressed and the things that could have been within us are getting kind of pushed down in some way. And then we also receive culture, parental things, and we start to build our identity from external sources as well. Some of those are really supportive for us and some of them are not so much. So we build that on top of us, but at the core, there's this little inner being, this little inner baby that's growing up healthily or otherwise. So as adults, every time we come around to Aries season again, we have this like richer opportunity to connect with that like beginning infantile ego, but now with our adult selves. So we're not just crying and pooping anymore, and we also aren't as egoically self-centered as an infant is, where they don't know that there's others around, they don't care that their screams are waking people up, and that's good and healthy for them. They should be completely self-absorbed in their own experience, and then later as they grow up they learn that there's other people around. So we get to kind of circle back into that healthy ego of what are my needs, and I am here, and I actually sort of demand my needs to be met. Just by virtue of being alive, I have a right to have my needs met. And then we layer that in with our maturity and our knowing of how we do that as adults in a culture and society where other people are there too. Everybody has this egoic baby self that needs their needs met. And how do we do that? How do we learn? That's kind of the project of human growing up, is how do I be me while respecting and caring for and growing with all of the other people that are also learning how to be me, to be them. So we have this invitation with this card to reconnect and reach back into this inner child state, and that's super supported right now with the beginning of April being Aries season, because that's very close to the surface. There's a very natural kind of settling back into that ego self. But then this other aspect of the card is trying to bring in this mature aspect of this union of masculine and feminine in this adult sense. So as we age and as we grow into our adult selves, we should be hopefully integrating our feminine and masculine qualities. Regardless of your sex or gender identity, we all have masculine and feminine energy in us, and ideally we're learning how to integrate those together, and that's this mature adult self. So this is what we're like, if we can utilize this mature adult self that has this union, or is going for this union of healthy masculine feminine energy, and then there's this little child. It's like, hey, take me with you, don't leave me behind. And so the invitation is to take him up on the horse, to have this what can feel like a contradiction. We especially in depending on how you grew up, there can be a really big emphasis on, you got to grow up and you got to mature. Don't be childish. Don't be like that. Like, get rid of all your child security sort of feelings and the things that you did as an infant. Like, no. We're adults now. And that's a separate dichotomy. You were a child, now you're an adult. And so that can be really traumatizing, that we like, I guess we got to hide all the things that are still childish, or we're super in judgment if there were things we liked as a kid, and that's childish sort of stuff. And anytime we behave, like even just the language, is like, you're being so childish. We hear it all the time, and which means that little child, for in this card, he's standing in the way of the horse and rider, and he's saying, hey, come get me. But for a lot of us, this child's actually like running away, or hiding under a rock, or hiding under, like, he's not prepared to come out because he's been so like demonized so many times, that part of the job of this healthy or trying to be unified adult is to go and find that kid. Might be like, this picture might be this person coming off the horse and looking for this child and excuse me, scooping the kid into their arms and getting back on the horse and going on with life. So the search for this inner child to bring along with us is going to look different and more in depth for all of us. But doing this now in Aries season is going to make it a lot easier, because that kid's like kind of popping their head up a little bit more than they are in other seasons. So this is a great time to scoop them along, because if you wait, let the season go by, kid might hide back down again, and it's going to be a lot harder to find him. So this reconciling this inner child, and that inner child also has this element of like the animal. So when we're an infant, we're pure animal. There's not really a lot of cognition happening there yet. It's all just the animal instincts of eat, sleep, cry, poop, all of that. And so that's an instinct. That's our first existence. And we don't get rid of that when we grow up. We are still animals. We do still cry. We do still eat. We all poop. Real talk here. So that's something that, again, just like our child nature can be very scorned or shamed, and we sort of pretend it doesn't happen. We sort of keep it on the outskirts. Nobody wants to know that we're all actually organic animals still, and we're just, a lot of cultures are trying to like elevate ourselves, like we're embarrassed that we're animals, embarrassed we used to be children, and we're trying to like civilize ourselves out of being animals. It's all still there. That's part of the thing that gets to come up while retrieving the inner child, is retrieving the genuine animal that is within us and not letting it go rampant either. We're not returning to, or we're not trying to be rabid beasts. That's a very if that's what gets unleashed this Aries season, that's a dark side of things. Aries season in its lighter element is this healthy ego and this healthy crying out for needs and recognizing the needs of the self, and not subordinating them to others. The dark side can be very aggressive, can be very impulsive, can be a negative aspect of that inner animal, which is just, I'm entirely looking out for myself. I'm very impulsive. Aries is connected to the warrior as well. So there can be this like animalistic, I'm going to fight if I'm backed in the corner, and it's all about me. I'm so in the ego. And if there's still this sense of danger, and not feeling well taken care of by, this healthy adult that's got the chargers, got the weapons, should be there to protect as well. When an animal's back in a corner, it gets pretty violent. So that is a risk of this particular Aries season, and a risk anytime that you do try to connect with these kind of more feral instincts or childish aspects, is it's much more raw, much more impulsive, and that comes up to the surface. So it's an interesting balance of you want it to be a healthy, integrated kind of animal and inner child that does not subvert, but it is not caged either by our more cognitive adult selves. So this is an interesting balance to get to go for. But once you do, this is then that invitation, as the card is talking about, is acknowledging our strengths and our weaknesses. So having an authentic sort of knowledge of what your strengths are and your weaknesses is going to make you significantly more effective and much safer, because you're not going to be blindsided. So lots of times it can be we can really easily fall into a tendency of either trying to play ourselves up as superior, only looking at our strengths, being really scared of weaknesses, and riding on this I'm the best, which is usually has this undertone of fear of what happens if I'm not the best. I have to show all of my strengths because I'm going to be in danger if I show my weaknesses. The other side is we can very often lean into our inferiority, become really passive, and only see our weaknesses. Whether that's just not believing that there are strengths, whether that's just kind of been beaten into you that you're not special or you don't have your own strengths, or whether it's a fear of harming people, fear of strength, fear of, a lot of people, fear of your own power is a lot of the phrase that's around, of just what happens if I do wrong, or that, well, the strong people are targeted. If I just blend to the bottom, maybe I'll be safe and I can get by. Or guilt of just feeling well, other people don't. I see a lot of some people don't have strengths that are very obvious, and I feel bad if I excel in some way, so I'm actually just going to kind of stay in this mediocrity. There's a lot of tendency to pick one or the other, not necessarily consciously, but we tend to, tend in one direction. Virgo is in one of their kind of stereotypical energies, tends to the inferior, tends to feeling that, well, I'm going to elevate other people and subordinate myself, which in a healthy aspect is through exploration of service, of acknowledging that I don't have to be the top. I'd like to take care of other people. I'd like to learn and what it's like to serve other people. But in an ideal place, that's not from a place of banishing strength, pretending to be weak and only elevating others. Ideally, it comes from a place of strength, of acknowledging what you are capable of and choosing to not always be the spotlight, and choosing to help showcase other people's strengths, and understand that you are, to everybody else, you are also an other who has strengths that may also be showcased and assisted as well. So a healthy Virgo doesn't get too stuck in that inferior place, and understands that it is part of a whole. So if that resonates with you on either end, it's not every Virgo that does that. It's not like y'all have inferiority complexes. It's just that tendency of aiding and looking to help others can be done with a healthy ego and a healthy knowledge of your strengths, and that's one of your strengths is to help people. Or it can be done in this kind of guilty fear place that's I don't deserve to do good, therefore be good, therefore I'm just going to help other people. So that's not what we're looking for. So let's see. Okay, yeah. So I was talking about Aries energy. this inner child, and we've kind of talked about Aries already. So just towards the end of the month, end of April, we're going to be rolling into Taurus season. Taurus season is an earth element, so that's going to be, since Virgo's an earth element too, that's going to be like a kind of like, yeah, this is kind of your vibe. And Taurus is very like, usually like a very hardworking, diligent energy of like, yeah, like now we're gonna like get some things in the ground. We're gonna work at it. We're not just gonna jump to a new project. It's time to like really ground into whatever Aries season is kind of sparked up. But Taurus is also like has an emphasis on security and safety. Taurus likes to feel safe, and a lot of how Taurus feels safe is things, like a nice like comfy, cozy things, a nice, secure home place. There's a big emphasis on security, home, financial security as well, and just like the things of life that make you feel good. And if we're in a state of trying to bring up this inner child aspect, and like that inner animal, safety is going to be really key. Like if you bring up and you drag this inner child up from wherever it's hiding and then throw it into a dangerous place, not going to want to be there. Definitely going to want to hide again. Or if you take the animal up and throw it into danger, it's going to still get feisty and fighty. So in this Aries season of discovery of that ego and bringing that inner child along, then placing it in a Taurus vibe of here's safe, here's home. And really care and cultivate this young child or this inner animal. So towards the end of the month, like really, like you can feel good. Like this is a great time to really take care of yourself. Think about what makes you feel secure and comfortable, what feels like home, whether that's your actual home space, whether that's, reconnecting with family, if family feels safe for you, and especially if you're bringing up child, like inner child sort of things, having conversations with family and friends that knew you when you were young, like asking questions, being curious and playful about like, well, what was I like as a kid? Or this was my experience as a kid, like bringing that up into a home space if that's supportive for you. Whatever home safety security looks like in your life, bring that on end of April, so that you can, like you've got this very vulnerable sort of inner child that you're working with, and you should feel good and feel safe. So that's sort of what I got for you this month. If you want to know a little bit more about some of the planetary transits, there's still a lot of energy that isn't just the Aries Taurus energy this month. We've got still a bunch of Pisces energy from different planets moving into Pisces still. So there's lots of other things at play. So if you'd like to check out, I have an Aries season forecast workshop, and it's pay what you can. So that's going to be significantly more information on planetary transits that are going to be really relevant for you, just to kind of give you a bit more of a context for how you're going to then be exploring this particular specific card for you. So that's on my YouTube channel. Go check it out. Again, pay what you can. So that's what's coming up for you, Virgo. You've got lots of work ahead of you, but I think it's going to be great. So much love to you, and I will see you next month.